The Duffer Brothers really land that ending. It was so good, and I am so glad that all the time I devoted to the show paid off, and that the Duffer Brothers remained dedicated to the core themes they have always conveyed throughout the show. Those last 40 minutes were pure bliss, filled with nostalgia. That scene at the end, where they finished their campaign, put the book on the shelf, and slowly walked up the stairs, broke me. I don't usually cry at a show, but that scene made me tear up. It felt like the Duffer Brothers wanted us to say goodbye to the characters. It wasn't just the end of a show, it was the end of an era, and I am honored that I took part in it. And if that wasn't enough, the follow-up scene with Mike looking back at Holly while she and her friends played their first D&D game just made me realize how much I loved this show. Finn's acting there was exceptional. Although I must be honest and say that I hated how he acted in the last scene with Eleven in the Void, I truly thought he couldn't act emotionally. This final scene contradicted that completely. His facial expressions were perfect, going from sadness to happiness. Those micro expressions were top-notch. I think this scene hit even harder for adults. We spent our whole childhood outside doing God knows what all day with our friends, and we always took that for granted. But when we look back, we realize that everything has an end. We realize that on one of those days we were outside with our friends. Without knowing it, that was the last time we would all be together like that. At its core, Stranger Things isn't really about monsters or secret labs. It's about people growing up while the world gets scary. It's about self-acceptance, and it's about friendship. This is why I loved this 40-minute epilogue, and I believe this story ended in the best way possible. Everything connects in the end. For the people who are disappointed in the finale, I think they watched a completely different series until now. The show was never about killing people. It was never about pure action or the war against Vecna and the Mind Flayer. While I agree that there were some things that could have been better, and that some elements were forgotten purely for the plot, like where all the Demogorgons were when the gang was fighting the Mind Flayer, or how the military just retreated from Hawkins, and none of the main characters suffered any consequences. The show still did its job. It answered all the main questions and closed the circle perfectly. The show started and ended with a game of D&D. Mike looking back at Holly as his realization that he passed the torch to the next generation. Dustin's graduation speech is an homage to Eddie. Everything Eddie said in the cafeteria that he would do at graduation was done by Dustin. I'm gonna walk that stage next month. I'm gonna look Principal Higgins dead in the eye. I'm gonna flip him the bird. I'm gonna snatch that diploma, and I'm gonna run like hell. Dustin does all of this while Iron Maiden's The Trooper plays in the background, which is the perfect ending to Eddie's character arc. Hopper is finally accepting his grief. The pep talk he gave Mike clearly shows his character growth. When Sarah died, it broke him in every way possible. Now that his second daughter died, he didn't go down the same road as before. He accepted the pain of loss and decided to move on with his life. I am really glad that he finally got that date at Enzo's with Joyce and that the two of them are going to get married. Joyce's ending arc was also extremely well handled. While I did feel it was a bit odd that she was the one who delivered the final blow to Vecna, since she felt almost invisible in the first part of the finale episode, and her only motivation for being in the abyss seemed to be delivering that final blow. Looking back at everything that happened, I believe she had the most right to be the one to end it all. I liked how they showed everyone's thoughts as she was beheading him. You killed my lover. You hurt my mother. You hurt my brother. Here's an interesting detail that I don't know is random or intentional by the Duffer Brothers. Joyce hit Vecna 8 times before finally chopping his head off. Could that have been a hint that Kaylee wasn't dead and still has one last part to play? Robin, Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve promising to meet once a month was another touching moment. Everyone is choosing a different life path, especially Nancy. That proud look from Jonathan, seeing that she chose her own path and didn't follow the stereotypical silver spoon upbringing. That expression almost translated to, "This is why I'm in love with you." The only thing I am truly disappointed about in this epilogue is the fact that we didn't see Murray. Where is he? He deserved to be there with everyone else. Now let's get to the most important part of the ending. First of all, 11 is alive. This isn't even an open-ended question, it's a fact. And I don't know why so many people are confused about it. There are multiple signs suggesting this. First, when they returned from the Upside Down and the truck tire went flat, we can see that 11 is in the truck with Mike, and 1 second later she disappears. A soldier even tells Dr. K she was right here 1 second ago, down by the truck. There is no way 11 could have traveled that fast from the truck to the Upside Down gate without anyone seeing her. Also, the military base was filled with surveillance cameras, so they would have spotted her if she had run from the truck to the gate. Those are the facts. 11 was in the truck when they left the Upside Down, and Kaylee used her powers to make her invisible and help her escape. That zoom in on 11's hands is proof that it was an illusion. Those hand movements are exactly the same ones Kali's illusions had when she escaped the lab, and Kaylee herself stated that they went too far and the illusion isn't stable, which explains the hand flickering. Another important tell is her discussion with Mike in the void. 11 cannot enter the void without being at least blindfolded, and here we saw her staying completely still. No isolation tank, no static noise, no blindfold, nothing. This void scene is proof that 11 escaped the military base and arrived in the tunnels. From there, she was able to blindfold herself and enter the void. That discussion with Mike was necessary to convince him that she was in the Upside Down, because as Mike said, in order to fool the military, she needed to fool her friends as well. That scene with Mike and Hopper screaming was what ultimately sold it and made Dr. K think 11 had died. The scene with Mike telling the others the story is his realization that 11 is alive. He also knows this deep down, but he decides not to follow her or try to reconnect with her. This shows Mike's growth as a character as well. In Season 2, he always tried to contact her without knowing for certain that she was alive. He just hoped, and that hope is why he kept trying. But this version of Mike is more mature. I think this beautifully portrays Mike's love for 11. He loves her enough to let her go. Mike knows 11 is alive, but he also knows that the military would always keep a close watch on him. Maybe on all of them as well. So Mike or any of the others trying to contact her in any way could alert the military and make them suspect that she was still alive. I think deep down, 11 wanted this too, and this is why we saw a shot with only 2 waterfalls. I always thought we would get the ending Mike talked about, that 11 would move to a place with 3 waterfalls. But 11's choice to go somewhere with only 2 waterfalls might signify that she doesn't want to be found by Mike. That could be why she didn't choose 3 waterfalls in case Mike ever tried to look for her. The last thing I want to talk about is Henry. First of all, Jamie Bauer was exceptional. If he doesn't get an Emmy for his performance, it would be the biggest robbery of the century. The way he managed to portray a version of Henry that was even scarier than Vecna is something I still can't comprehend. But the flashback scene inside the cave was some of the most impressive acting I've seen in a long time. When Will saw the truth and told Henry that he was a victim and could still redeem himself, we could see hope in Henry's eyes. I genuinely thought he might change sides in that moment. You could really read the struggle in his face and hear it in his voice. It was so believable and made him a real villain, not just a pawn of the Mind Flayer. He could have resisted. Maybe he did at first, but over the years, with everything that happened to him, you can see through his arc how it might not have been entirely his fault. External forces like the Mind Flayer, Brenner, and even his family pushed him toward becoming the villain he ultimately was. I feel like a part of him also knew that he had caused too much damage and destroyed too many lives for redemption to be possible. Some people are just too far gone, and he accepted that he was one of them. That's what makes this scene so emotional. You really see the traumatized little boy version of Henry and how his words changed from "get out" to "leave me alone." Henry being dressed as a Boy Scout was also an especially thoughtful choice, symbolizing innocence, boyhood, and curiosity, all of which were lost in that cave. In the end, I'm really glad we didn't get a redemption arc for Henry, even though the signs were there. Hopefully this video helped you understand the ending a little better. I plan to make another video with my honest review of how this epic saga ended, because I also have some complaints that I don't think were properly addressed, but that's a topic for another video. Let me know your opinion about the finale episode in the comments.